Good afternoon and welcome to Across the Arts. I'm your host, Patrick D. McCoy, and today we are honored to feature composer Z. Randall Stroope as a part of the Spotlight series in cooperation with the Heritage Signature Chorale here in Washington, D.C., who celebrates their 25th silver anniversary this weekend, and I hope that you all will get tickets. So, a little bit about Z. Randall Stroope. Dr. Stroope is an American composer and conductor, having conducted concerts in 26 countries and published over 200 musical works. He is the artistic director of two international summer music festivals and has directed music for Vatican Mass 12 times. Wow. And so timely. Recent guest conducting engagements include Rome, Hong Kong, Barcelona, Dublin, Stockholm, Berlin, Indonesia, and Vienna. In the United States, Dr. Stroope has directed 56 performances at Carnegie Hall and Chicago Orchestra Hall, 48 all state choirs, and numerous other conducting workshops, clinics, and performances at universities and festivals. He is the founder of the New American Voices, a professional recording and performing ensemble based in Dallas, Fort Worth. This ensemble has toured Northern Italy, Belgium, and the Netherlands in the summer of 2024 and records twice a year. The ensemble will be touring Spain and Northern France in June 2026. Randall holds a Bachelor of Music Education in Voice and Piano, a Master of Music and Voice Performance, and a Doctor of Musical Arts in Conducting. He did postgraduate work with Margaret Hillis, Chorus Master of the Chicago Symphony, and he was Professor of Music at three major universities during the teaching portion of his career. Without further ado, please help me welcome Z. Randall Stroope. Hi, Randall.
It's great to be here, Patrick. Thanks you so much for inviting me.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat, not only about your career, but a work in particular that we will get to. I was so excited when the Heritage Central Chorale shared with me their repertoire list and I saw your name. I was like, wow. I said, I know that name. And I was so delighted. So Randall, just for the person who may just be being acquainted with you for the first time, I ask everybody this question. How did you catch the initial music bug? How did you get your first interest?
Well, as with most composers, anyway, where a significant part of their income comes from composition or from commissions, I began my musical training with piano at an early age. And then many composers that are emerging now, of course, don't come from a piano background necessarily, but in that day and age, most of us did. And today, then I went to brass, played in the for a wind ensemble, and I took voice lessons at an early age. And my parents sent me to music camp in the summer in a place called Waxahachie, Texas. And I learned a whole lot there. Of course, the basic courses about theory and counterpoint, but they taught improvisation, the creation of sound from really just spontaneous, and also chamber music. So all of those sort of early experiences, starting with piano all the way through the summer camps and being in school ensembles, wind ensemble, and so on, were really the beginning of my, as you say, bug in music.
I'm really fascinated. The singer part of me in particular is so fascinated because, the fact that you have a background as a singer yourself, and
Mhm.
I'm sure that gives you a lot of insight about when you write vocal works, as particularly choral works. Um, when you're writing choral pieces, what are some of the elements that you really consider, like when you write the piece, be that you are also a singer?
Well, of course, the text is the first thing that you begin with, and some texts are just absolutely beautiful poetry. However, they don't sing well. They don't set to music well. So the first thing is to find a poem that really, I think, fits the voice. In other words, it has a lot of vowels that are not only that are really warm to the voice, a lot of the open vowels and things like that. And so I look for a great text, and that makes the job of writing the music so much easier. Of course, one has to be aware of the obvious things like ranges and those sorts of things, but also the collision of parts and the threading together of various things to create this sort of a tapestry of sonority and sound. So those are sort of the general way that you kind of. My mother was an artist, a visual artist, and I always remember seeing palettes of paint and canvases on the table. We never ate at the kitchen table because there was always paint on the table. But she always told me that creation begins with a blank palette, and my blank palette is silence. I mean, just the idea of just complete silence, and then the ideas start to kind of come forth and form. And so that's the beginning, is the text, and then finding a place of silence and really thinking through it. And then, of course, all the skill sets that you may have relative to instrumental or vocal, compositional craft, and that sort of thing kind of come to bear on that.
And speaking of sonorities, as I just look over your repertoire and the composition that you've written a wide breadth for instruments, combination of voices, and so forth. And that brings me to your piece, "Consecrate the Place and Day." You know, I think about all of the other settings of the Ode to Saint Cecilia's Day, the Handel, the Purcell, and now I hear this fresh setting by you. And talk to me a little bit about the origin of this piece. I know it was a dedicatory piece, or it was commissioned for a big hall or something of that nature. Just talk to me about the genesis of that
Yeah, you're
piece.
right. The dedication was for a new hall in California, and to honor a great conductor there. And of course, Saint Cecilia is a Christian martyr, and in the Roman Empire, and her day is celebrated on November 22nd. Of course, it's celebrated, I think, all year long, but that's the day that's dedicated to her. And then a millennium and a half later comes John Addison, who is, of course, I say the three P's. He's a poet, a playwright, and a politician. And he has set this, as you said, the Ode to St. Cecilia's Day, which is just a marvelous and very positive celebration of the arts and a positivity. I grabbed the music over here and I wrote just a bit of the text. It says, "Consecrate the place and day to music and Cecilia, to harmony, love, let no rough winds approach, nor no mournful sighs, but gladness dwell on every tongue." So it's just a celebration of the arts, of the human spirit, of positivity.
That's amazing. I'm looking forward to hearing it because, as I mentioned, the fact that the Heritage Scenic Ground here in Washington, D.C., they're celebrating their 25th anniversary, and that piece has certainly been a focal point of their repertoire under the direction of Stanley J. Thurston, who is the founding conductor. So it is such an honor, the fact that, we get to illumine this piece even further by talking to the composer. And you're a living, breathing
So
composer.
far, so
A
good.
lot of times we're going to claim that you have many more, but a lot of times, you go to these concerts and it's your tried and true, composers, but the opportunity to speak to the composer and get the insight from the actual composer, and with you being with us today, it's just so amazing to me. So thank you again so much for that. And just as we close, I can't help to focus on the point that you were a teacher, at the university level, and part insight to many students as far as music is concerned. If you had to give, I guess, a word of advice to an aspiring professional musician, whether it be a composer or conductor, what would you say to that person?
I would say that the things that I see that are most needful, besides the usual, they have to study their craft and so on, is finding moments of silence to work in this world, which is that constant input of media and such like that. To compose well, I think you have to have silence. The second thing you need to do is have discipline. I write every day between 4 and 6 a.m. without fail when I'm on. And so you need that daily. I always say that creativity is not a spigot where you just turn it on when you want to. It's something that has to be cultured, and if you go after it day after day like that, you'll find that you write a lot faster. And the third thing is to study privately with a composer. They help you, they look at your works from your standpoint. It's not a classroom setting, but it's a very private study. And for them to really evaluate their works and their style and not impose some other style upon them. I think that private study, silence, and discipline are really three of the hallmarks of a great composer.
Randall, thank you so much. It's been such a joy to speak to you. I hope it's not the last time that I get to, speak to you or interact, and I hope it'll be in person. But again, I want to thank you, and just again to the viewers, I want to encourage you to get your
Yes.
tickets to the 25th Silver Anniversary concert. You'll hear many pieces, but I'm going to really emphasize the fact that you're going to hear Consecrate the Day and Place by yours truly, Z. Randall Stroope. Dr. Stroope, Randall, thank you so much for being with us today, and thank you for allowing us to just amplify your glorious composition and your career. Thank you so much.
And thank you. And you give my best to Stanley and the Heritage Singers, a great group. I encourage your audience to go to that concert. I think they'll be wowed.
Thank you so much. Just hold tight for a second.